All right, so I had a few people that wanted to see a deck profile to see how my deck operates. This deck profile is for everything pre Flames of Destruction, so it's pretty much the current build until I get add the Troy mares and add some other things on there. But this is what or I guess I should say nightmares, but this is what it looks like. So I'll go ahead and start with the monsters. The best Mermail, 3 Abystius. This is one of the better cards you can have in your deck because Abystius actually he starts all your combos. He searches for something, he summons himself, he raises your ceiling. A lot of 2 card combos you have start with him. Abystius and Neptibus, Abystius and Rosenix, even 3 card combos, Abystius, a Water, and an Aqua Spirit. All of them start with the 2 card combo, and if you run Saryuja, he can fuel your Saryuja by getting 3 monsters out with him and another monster, which is always good. He enables your rank 7 plays. He's the most important Mermail monster you have in your deck. The second most important one is Abyss Megalo, and I run 3 of them. A lot of the times I run into a situation where I need to have board presence, but my Abyss or my normal summon or anything like that gets striked. And when that kind of thing happens, I need to still be able to make plays. Well, Abyss Megalo is always there for you to be able to do plays. He works with some other cards too, like he's very searchable, but even though he's very searchable, you still want to have him in your hand just in case you don't draw him or you have no way of searching him. He's never dead as long as you have water monsters in your hand. He's always good. He searches the trap, which basically can turn into a Regeki break, or he can search for the spell if you run the spell and gives himself an additional spell negate, even though you don't get a choice on what you get to negate. But he's very crucial. Worst comes to worst, if you draw 2 Megalos and a bunch of waters, you can go into a Tomahawk, make a Skull Dread with that, make a Coal-Linked Firewall Dragon, make all kinds of stuff. And you can kind of just work your way around that, make at least something decent. So he's never a bad card to have. That's why I run 3 of him. And then these are the one of Mermails. So I run the Abyss Pike, the Abyss Mander, Abyss Ocean, Abyss Gund. The Gund is a combo piece, and it's also a free revival tool. So she is something that you don't really always want to have in your hand, but if she's in your hand, it's great because you can discard her to bring back a Mermail. She's in your deck, she's great because she makes your Osha live. The Abyss Mander, he could be good in your hand or in your deck because, again, Osha can pull him straight out of your deck. Osha, you always want to search with the Abyss, but even if you have it, you can at least you can set it. It has a big defense, so that's always really good. Or worst comes to worst, you can use it as fodder. And the Pike you almost always want to have in your deck. That's why I only run 1. I don't run the Turge because the Pike is always live. The Pike can always search for something. The Turge, you need a graveyard to set up. Now, you could interchange them. The Turge does give you levels 1 through 4 of Mermail, so it's a little, or water, excuse me. So it's a little bit more flexible in the graveyard mid to late game, but early game, if you really have to resolve Pike, you can resolve him. If you just draw a Pike and a discard fodder, you can resolve it because you can always search for something. If you have a Turge and that's the only card you draw, you're not going to be able to resolve him and discard your monster because you weren't able to get anything back from your graveyard, which I always like to make sure my cards resolve or have the highest possibility of resolving, and you always start with more cards in your deck than your graveyard, so the Pike is always the best option. Turge might work. It might be, I think it's a little bit worse, but I could see why people run Turge if they do run Turge. But those are the one of Mermail monsters. Previously, I had the Abyss Lind as part of this lineup too, but I figured out, somebody told me on Reddit that of a ruling that I didn't know, what's he called? Proxy Dragon. You cannot destroy things that would already be destroyed. So my understanding was with Proxy Dragon, if you were to destroy, do like a field wipe, like Dark Hole, Regeki, anything like that, you could just substitute one of the cards he points to instead. Well, if that card would have been destroyed, you can't use that card, so he really doesn't stop field wipes. I used to run Abyss Lind, so I can redirect the destruction to her and then float, so I can get another redirection of destruction. But because of the ruling, I cut her because I don't need her. Maybe if you go against Shaddolls, against something like that, you can crash her to get into Megalo to run over Shaddol Winda, but that's neither here nor there. Now to the Atlanteans, you run 3 Neptibus. This is probably the best card in the deck. He is the best normal summon by far. He's a +2. He's a level 1, so he goes into Link Karibo. You can get him off the field. He's the most versatile card in the world. And if you have extras in your hand, you can pitch them to get back your Dragoons that you usually send from the first one, which is amazing. Anytime you draw at least one, you're usually in a really good position. You can usually make some type of board that has negation and disruption, which is great. Unfortunately, 1-for-1 is at 1, so we really don't have ways to summon him straight out of the deck. And Diva is at 1 too, which makes it a little bit worse. Although Diva usually gets Ash, so that kind of puts you in a hairy situation. But this is by far the best normal summon monster you have in your deck, period. And yeah, that's why you run 3 of them. And so support for the Neptibus, you get the 2 Dragoons. We're only allowed to draw 2, and the 2 Infantry. If Dragoons was at 3, I would cut an Infantry and I would do the 3rd. I really kind of only want to run 1 Infantry, but I want to keep the ratios even, 2 and 2. I actually used to run 1 Infantry, 1 Marksman. That was my favorite ratio because you had 1 card for each. You were never out of luck. You could still do that, especially if you go against some back row heavy decks. You can, end phase pop their back row, anything like that. But it just kind of depends on the matchup. This is probably the most relevant right now, and he works as a better combo piece than Marksman because Marksman, you can actually... Marksman, he doesn't do anything if you don't have anything to discard him. He does battle damage, but that means you have to already be in a winning position where you're doing battle damage with a 1400 attack monster. This guy's great turn 1 because when you summon him, you get an additional normal summon, which lets you go up to more plays like Mistar Boy or anything like that. So he's probably the most versatile of all of them. And then of course, if you run the rank 2 Cat Shark, he turns into a Dryden, which is wonderful. But this is the lineup. Again, if the Dragoons was at 3, I would cut one of these without hesitation and then run the 3rd Dragoons because 2 is nice, but 1 I think is better because he's so searchable, especially if you had 3 Dragoons. But I like this ratio the way it is. I wish we had this at 3, but I mean, what can you do? So that's for the Atlanteans. And then these are some of the extra cards that I run. So frogs, I run the 3 frogs and the Ronin Totem. I did have the dupe frog in my deck, but the dupe frog was I already run a bunch of bricks in my deck, so I can't. I was trying to shave off as many bricks as I run. I actually ran the level 3 Mermail monster that lets you summon a Mermail monster from your hand. So if you drew like her and Megalo, you could just crash her into something and summon Megalo from your hand. The problem I was running into that is it was a brick. So other than doing that, it didn't really do much else. I would rather cut back on those cards and just run cards that I need that are very critical. Swap Frog is never dead. Swap Frog always brings out a Toad, almost guaranteed. That and a water monster, you're good to go. Unfortunately, I wish the Dupe Frog makes it so that the Toad you summon, it has a lot of protection or has battle damage protection, so they don't have a way to cheese, to destroy it without or avoid it. They have to kill the Dupe Frog before they kill that guy, and even if they kill any of them, you're starting to get your cards back, so you're not in a dire position and you're not in a bad position in any way. But this is my favorite lineup right now. If I find room in the future, maybe I'll add it on there. But for now, I'm very comfortable with this. And of course, the Ronin Toaded, it helps with the link plays. I mean, it's great. This is always better. And it has some synergy with the Biscond. So you can bring back some of your Mermail monsters. This is some more support for the turn 1 plays. I played 3 Crystron Rosenix. I first saw this whenever somebody was doing a profile on the Sekka Mermails with the Undyne. And I saw that deck running 1, and so I started thinking, well, what's so good about this card? Well, this card, you can banish itself to get a token on the field. You can use that token to go into Link Spider, which opens up as one of your main monster zones. Well, what I failed to realize is Kristarn Rosenix actually counts as 2 cards. One is to discard it to activate one of your Mermail effects, and 2, to banish it to get another body on board. So he pays for himself, and he makes it so that your Mermail activations are pretty much free, which is wonderful. That makes it so you can do Bahamut Toad with 2 cards. You could do it with Rosenix, and you could do it with Abyss, as I showed in my previous video. You can banish it, get the token out, and then send the token and get rid of the token and get rid of the Abyssmander, and you get a Mistar Boy. That leaves you with 2 level 3s, the Mistar Boy. All you do is banish the Abyssmander you sent to get the Mistar Boy out, make him level 4, Bahamut Toad, and now you have the same field that you would have had with 3 cards, which would be, it would have been, what's his name? Tejas, a Water, and Aqua Spirit. And now you did that same board, instead of with 3 cards, you did it with 2, which is a lot more efficient. If you draw this with Neptibus, it's wonderful because it acts as another thing, so you can link up into Abyss, into Mistar Boy, which gives you a link 2 up here. When you make the Tomahawk with it, that guarantees you're going to get a co-linked Firewall, and you're going to get a Toad, and you're going to search the spell. It's great. It makes it so that you're going to go off as long as you have enough water fodder that you can discard. And as long as this is one of the pieces of it, it ends up working out. And then I run 3 Gameciel, the Sea Turtle. This is probably the only thing that does absolutely nothing that I am okay with running 3 of. This is the biggest brick in my deck, but I don't mind running this at all. It's great. It's great always having the answer, and if you don't have the answer, you can always pitch it to do that. I was actually you can pitch it to summon your water monsters. I was actually running the Waterfront for a little bit. I was thinking, well, how can I wonder if I can add Waterfront into this. It happens to be that I can't, because a lot of the combos, you send a lot of cards to the graveyard, but you don't send a lot of monsters to the graveyard from the field. And so that's one of the reasons why this deck ended up not being too good for that. So whenever I would summon Gameciel, he'd have like 2 tokens, or I'd only have enough to search him, but not to summon him with any type of counters on him, which was pretty bad. Otherwise, he's really great. I love him because he always gets rid of outs. If I don't have like a removal card, he's always great, especially if you get something that's, that can negate your removal card. You can just kaiju over it, remove it, and then you really just need 2 cards, and you need 2 cards in this deck to OTK your opponent. You just need what's his name? You need Neptibus and a Water, and you can usually OTK your opponent if you can get rid of their field. So going first, going second, even going first, he's okay because he's discard fodder. The next 3 that I run is Aqua Spirit. I'm really not a big fan of this card, but it is a card that you run just in case you run out of options. She provides you an extra body for link material. So if you use your normal summon, something happens to your normal summon where you can't really do much else, she's a really good card to go into because she extends your plays. She makes it so that you're not restricted to 1 normal summon. I mean, most of your Mermails already do that. But you have to discard things. She can just bring herself right out, banish cards, modulate the level so that when you drop Mulan Glacia, you have a little bit more control over your graveyard in that case. But she's okay. She has some synergy with the Abyss. She has some synergy with the Neptibus. I can easily see you bring her out with Lakunga. It was either her or Lakunga, but Lakunga it's very situational. Well, it's not even situational. It requires a lot of setup. So if you're summoning Lakunga, chances are you're already winning. So, and it's a normal summon. So if you what would you rather use normal summon for, Neptibus or for Lakunga? So that's why I decided to run Aqua Spirit just as an extra piece of extension, if you will. And then for the last two water monsters that I run, or the last two monsters period, I run Deep Sea Diva and Mooling Glacier. Deep Sea Diva is great because if you run the Tatsunoko, Deep Sea Diva is a 1-card combo to get you Mooling Glacier. And next set, whenever Dawn Dragster comes out, you'll be able to make Dawn Dragster. So you'll be able to rip 2 cards from your opponent's hands and negate one of their spell and trap cards with 1 card. That's ridiculous. That's unheard of. So I like that. Mooling Glacier is so easy to search for. If you draw an Neptibus and a water, you can easily summon this. No big deal. And as soon as we get Abyssalacia, you'll be able to get an additional negate. So it's not as strong as a Deep Sea Diva, but it's still a pretty good combo nonetheless. The only thing is this always gets ashed, so kind of be careful whenever you summon it. Alright, so now moving on to the spells. I run 3 Moray of Greed. This is probably one of the best spells you can run. I was really not wanting to run it, but because I run so many cards that you don't want to draw, that you want to have in your deck, this is great because I'm able to draw the pieces that I actually need, and it replaces itself, which is wonderful. So then instead of having 2 waters in a spell, you'll have 3 waters, which makes some of your combos live. But great card. I love this card, and it's not once per turn, so that's good. And then for the 1-ofs, I run 1-for-1, Dark Hole, Soul Charge, and Monster Reborn. This is a really good combo extender. That's really the big reason I run it. And sometimes you can bring back a Toad once it's negated something, good stuff. The 1-for-1 is really important because you really, really want to start with Neptibus. Discarding a card isn't too bad. A lot of the times if you have your graveyard set up, you can discard a Gund or you can discard a Frog, and you can start making plays like that. Dark Hole for Mash Removal, you can replace it with Regeki. I have my Regeki in another deck, but Dark Hole is fine as well. And then Soul Charge. Soul Charge basically is an auto win. So if this deck doesn't have a lot of recovery once you do your turn 1 board. So if you need recovery, you can always Soul Charge to bring everything back, get a Firewall Dragon that's live, get all your negations back, which is wonderful. And then you can bring back the Toad too. And then the only trap I run is the Abyss Sphere. I was thinking of running the Abyss Sphere or running the Equip Spell card. The problem that I had with the Equip Spell card is the Equip Spell card, it does negate a spell card, but you don't get to choose which spell card you get to negate. Your opponent does. That's very frustrating because your opponent could bait it out. They can activate a spell card and just negate it immediately, or they can activate an Upstart Goblin, or they can activate, just something terrible. And so they can do that and then just drop a Mash Removal card or start going off for their combos now that you know that that's not happening anymore. With Abyss Sphere paired up with the Infantry, you can actually this basically acts as a Regeki break. So as long as you have an Abyss Pike in your deck, you can flip this over, summon the Pike, discard it, discard the Infantry, and then pop any card they have face up on the field. It is wonderful whenever they activate a card. So if they activate like Draconic Diagram, as soon as it resolves, then you flip this. You don't let them actually activate the thing on field. You flip this over, summon the monster, discard, and pop the card. And they can't do anything about it because it's all there unless they have, a Cyclone or anything like that. But this is probably the best card. Okay? This is why I went with this card, because of that reason. It gives me the opportunity to choose. All right, and so now for the extra deck. For the Link ones, I run Link Karibo, Secure Gardna, 2 Link Spiders. This is really important. These kind of go hand in hand. A lot of the times you'll have 6 tokens. You use with the Tomahawk. You use the Tomahawk and a token to make the Cleafort Genius. And then you need a way to be able to get your Firewall Dragon down without having to get rid of your more than one of your token. Well, if you do Link Spider, then immediately replace it with Secure Gardna. Secure Gardna points rights. So then you can just bring the Link 2 plus 2 more tokens down here. That makes your Firewall, and then get rid of another token to make your second Link Spider appear. It works a lot with the combos too. So if you draw the 2 card combo of Teus and Abyss, we have Teus and Neptibus. you can actually end up getting 3 cards back from your graveyard, which is great. That makes it so you don't have to worry about that too much. So that's it for that. And so I'll put them over here. For my link 2s, I do Proxy Dragon, Mistar Boy, Ib, and Cleafort Genius. Mistar Boy's great because he always lets you point down. Proxy Dragon is a generic 2, so I can always summon him and get rid of him to link up. And then Ib I recently added because I was running 2 Proxy Dragon, but because of the ruling I stated earlier, Ib is actually a better card. It protects your boss monsters, and if they they can't just easily get rid of them, they have to get rid of her. Then once they get rid of her, then they have to go over them, so they gotta waste resources. And Genius is great because if you make Tomahawk appear, you have a way of getting rid of him and getting 2 arrows pointing down to increase your plays, which is good. And then of course Mr. Boy floats whenever he dies, which is always wonderful. My link 3s are Decode Talker and Ningrisu. Ningrisu is really just a placeholder until we end up getting the link 4, the Griffin in Flames of Destruction. Once he does, he'll probably come out. And then the Decode Talker is for a link 3. You need a link 3 that can point left and right, bottom left, bottom right, so you can start the combo and then bring him down so you can turn him into a Firewall Dragon without using too many resources. So he's wonderful. He dodges Veiler, which is great. Whenever you go into your Tomahawk and they try to Veiler it, you contribute it to negate the effect, and you'll get 5 tokens instead of 4. Doesn't matter because as long as there are things you can use for link materials, you're good. And then Ningrisu, obviously, I actually am starting to like Ningrisu more and more because if you have something you can't beat over, summon Ningrisu, and he's non-targeting removal, he's wonderful. But he's probably going to come out as soon as we get that link monster. And then for my 4s, the only one I run is Firewall. Firewall is wonderful. He starts all of your combos. I wish we had him at 2. You were able to get 3 disruptions instead of 2 when he was at 3. But again, when we get that new link monster, we'll have 2 disruptions and we'll have a floodgate on the field, which will make your opponent not be able to summon monsters. Will not be able to activate special summon monsters effects that are not linked. Now for my Xyz monsters, I run 1 Bahamut Shark, 2 Toads, and a Galaxy Tomahawk. Tomahawk does a lot of your plays when you're doing those, and then the Bahamut, obviously to summon the Toad, and we run the Frogs so we can make the Toads the hard way if we need to. But that is my deck profile. One piece of errata I did want to update in my previous combo. In my previous combo video that I had, I made a combo with these 2 guys. And so the combo pretty much went like this. I'll just kind of recreate it. Dragoons into Megalo. And then Teus Goons. Teus gets you Gun, and then the Dragoons gets you that. So you link these 2 up to the Mistar Boy. Get rid of these 2. And so then with the Teus, or not with the Teus, with the Neptibus you summon this. And with the gun, you summon this. And then with the Megalo, you get this. You get rid of these 2. You make your Decode Talker. Then you overlay these 2 to Tomahawk. Get 4 tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so once you do that, you link these 2 up. Go into Proxy. Link these 2 up. Go into Firewall. Link this up. Go into Link Spider. Put them up here. And then if you had an extra monster in your hand, you can get 3, but we'll just get 2. You get the 2 level 4s. 1, 2. There you go. And so now you can link this Link Spider into Secure Gardna, summon your Dragoons here. you can get rid of the token to summon your second link spider, and then you can get rid of these two to summon Ningirsu. So firewall summon this, overlay these two right here into the shark, and then get the toad. And then that's gonna get you, the dragoons is gonna get you the infantry. And so now what I used to do is I used to just get rid of these two and summon the other proxy dragon. But now what I do is I learned that you can't do, that proxy dragon doesn't stop that kind of mass destruction. So now what I end up doing, I rewind the clocks. All right, so when you had this field, you were able to do link spider to secure, summon one. And then now you don't even have to go into the second one. You can just get rid of the proxy and the token to go into it. That'll trigger the firewall. And you can overlay these two into the shark. Detach one from the shark, get the toad at the top, and get your card. And so that's pretty good, because now what you have is you have the shark, Ib, and firewall with the toad to negate, and you have this. So if they do mass removal, you can either negate it, or you can get rid of her to keep these two guys on the field. So if these two guys were to be destroyed by a card effect, you can just get rid of her. She can't be targeted or be destroyed by battle. So it's really good. And then this is kind of, once the Troy mirrors come out, you're not going to have to run him, because you'll be able to run Mermail or Mermaid and Goblin and, you know, the whole Troy mirror package, and it'll make it a little bit more consistent. You'll have more room in your field, and you'll have some extra lockdown. But that's pretty much it. That's the only thing I wanted to go up to you. If you guys have any questions or concerns, just leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much.